Welcome back to the PM session. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Due to COVID-19, Committee of Adjustment public hearings are being conducted virtually by electronic means through WebEx webinar, an online digital platform, and streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel. Participants who have registered in advance will be able to make their presentations to the committee using WebEx webinar, which is moderated by city staff. Anyone wishing to view the hearing may watch it on YouTube. Participants who have registered in advance will be connecting via their computer, tablet, smartphone, or telephone, and have the option of participating via video or audio only. All participants will automatically be muted upon entry. When your item is called, each participant will be unmuted by city staff, one person at a time. We ask that you also mute your devices until you're called upon to speak. Please only use one device at a time, as use of additional devices can cause static noise and may interfere with the audio of this hearing. To ensure further audio clarity, we suggest that you do not use the speakerphone function of your telephones. Those participating by video appearance will be temporarily upgraded to panelist when your item is being held. During this time, your camera will be enabled. You will only be visible during your 5-minute allotted speaking time. At all other times, your video will be disabled and you will be reinstated as an attendee. Committee of Adjustment staff will share presentations submitted in accordance with the written submission deadline. Members of the public and applicants are not allowed to use the share screen option or any other panelist controls during a video appearance. City staff will remove you from the panelist role if you fail to respect this instruction. For all those who are waiting online, please ensure that you have called in with the phone number that you were originally registered with. If you call in with a different number, you will not be able to speak on this item. At this time, we wish to make an important land acknowledgement. We are participating in this public hearing today online from the North York Civic Centre Council Chambers. We would like to begin this meeting with an important land acknowledgement that Indigenous communities have been part of this land and the area's history since time immemorial. We would like to acknowledge this land on which we reside and work with gratitude and respect. It is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, and the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 and the Mississaugas of the Credit. We are encouraged to reflect upon our commitments both collectively and individually in taking steps towards meaningful reconciliation with Indigenous communities. Now, in accordance with Sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment of the City of Toronto is now called to order. My name is Nadini Sankar Peralta, and I will be chairing today's meeting. Joining us on the panel today are our astute members, Irving Bridgeraj and Brendan Clapp, as well as our Deputy Secretary Treasurer, Mr. Simon Lamb. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning that applies to property, permission to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and to consent to sever property to create new lots. Receiving a copy of the committee of the decision of the committee is for anyone attending today who wants to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on an application. You must submit a written request for a decision by email. Please ensure that you include your name, address, and email address because the Committee of Adjustment and the Toronto Local Appeal Body, the TLAB, will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email. If you do not agree with the decision of the committee, you may be able to appeal the decision to the TLAB or, in some limited circumstances, to the Ontario Land Tribunal. However, the provincial government recently amended the Planning Act and generally removed rights of third parties to appeal Committee of Adjustment decisions. As of November 28, 2022, only the applicant, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, specified persons and public bodies, as those terms are defined in the Planning Act, are permitted to appeal decisions of the Committee of Adjustment. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. The hearing procedures today are as follows. I'm going to call each item in the order listed on the agenda. Where an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant may proceed with their presentation if desired. When the committee does not require a presentation, applicants are to advise the chair if they still wish to speak to the item. The committee may ask questions and/or take the matter into committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant or agent, is given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee. I will ask you to summarize your remarks when you are reaching the 5-minute mark without exception. When addressing the committee, please state clearly your name and address. Please remember to confine your remarks to the matters described in the application only. The applicant or agent proceeds first and will make their presentation to the committee on the application. Please note that the committee may not entertain revisions to the proposals at today's hearing, and to ensure that the revised application is accurate and that all those entitled to notice of the application are informed of the changes, the committee may decide to defer the application if it is substantially revised. Then, individuals in support or opposition to the application will be invited to speak. If more than one individual wishes to speak to the item, we ask that you try not to repeat the points that were already made by others. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after they have finished their presentation. When all speakers are finished, the applicant or agent has an opportunity to rebut only those issues that were raised by the previous speakers within a 5-minute time frame. This will mark the end of discussion on the item, and the application will be taken into committee for a decision. We've already confirmed the minutes for this morning's session, and I'd just like to ask committee members any declarations of conflicts of interest for this afternoon session. None noted from panel members and none noted from myself. I will ask the Deputy Secretary Treasurer if there's any files to close this afternoon.
Through you, Madam Chair, there are none.
And what about any deferral requests?
There is a deferral request in the PM, number 28.
All right, item number 28. Let's deal with that matter first, and then we'll proceed in normal order. Item number 28, panel members, is number 12, York Downs Drive. So if we could turn your attention to number 12, York Downs Drive. And we've got on here, the agent is a Michael Figal. Michael Figal, are you there?
I am, Madam Chair.
Okay, great. If you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, it's Michael, M-I-C-H-A-E-L, F-I-G-O-L. My address is 2200 Bloor Street West, Suite 200, Mary 6 Sam, 1 Nancy 4.
Okay, and if you can share with us the reasons for this request for deferral.
Certainly. I've been involved in this matter for less than a week, but what has happened in the interim leading up to this meeting today is that the architect that drafted the plans was dealing with Diane Steinberg, who was the assistant planner, who prepared the report that is dated the 5th of May and has been entered into the file. My involvement was to engage with Diane Steinberg and advise her that I had taken over. What has been happening with both the architect and myself is that we're trying to deal with Ms. Steinberg to accommodate some of the variances and address the concerns raised by her in her letter of May the 5th. And we're making some progress. As of 2 days ago, both her and I thought it would be appropriate to request deferral because we're making headway, and we're hoping that when we come back, we'll have a cleaner application which will address some of the concerns that she raised. And in that way, we would have a more meaningful presentation, and hopefully some of those concerns will no longer be in the file.
All right, thank you so much for that. Members, do you have any questions of the agent here, Mr. Figal, who is requesting deferral to address some recent concerns and to make a better presentation and application, at the next possible hearing date? If you have no other concerns or questions, there's no one else to speak to this application. Can I get a motion to address this deferral request? Motion from Member Hunt. We've lost Member Hunt?
No.
Oh, you're there? Okay, good. Go ahead.
I pushed the wrong button.
Okay.
Through you, Madam Chair, I would, based on the comments by the applicant, I would move to defer this item sine die.
Okay, motion to defer this application sine die from Member Hunt and seconded by Member Manning. All those in favor? Your request for deferral has been unanimously approved. Thank you so much. Okay, members.
And thank you for calling.
No problem. Let's move on, members, to item number 21. That's the first item on this afternoon's agenda, and that's number 71 Livingston Avenue. So just give me one moment. Let me get my bearing here. So number 71 Livingston Avenue is to construct a front, rear, and second floor addition, front yard walkout decks, a rear parking, and interior alterations to convert dwelling into 3 units. On here, members, just wanted to share with you that it's 8 variances. Forestry does apply. There is a staff report for May 2nd where there are conditions, and there is 1 letter of support. Also, transportation of May 2nd has some conditions in a report as well. There is someone else to speak to this application, so let's call out Mr. Angus Skeen. Mr. Skeen, are you there?
Yes, I am. My name is Angus Skeen. I'm the architect and agent for the application.
And your address, please.
142 Glendale Avenue, Toronto, M6R2T2.
Why don't you provide us with a brief presentation discussing the merits of your application?
Certainly. I think the most important thing is, as you said, planning and works both made some conditions. Now, the works one came in late Monday night, so I filed revised drawings yesterday afternoon that staff was good enough to bring in. So it's key in all of this that we refer to the drawings received. They're stamped at 5:15 May 10th by city staff. So those are going to be the most important because they contain the conditions. There they are. Everything you see bubbled, there's the planning conditions came in first, so they're allocated under the little bubbled areas that have a little square number 3. And the works ones are in the bubble that has the little square number 4. So planning had 2 requests, both of them very easy for us to accommodate. One was that we plant shrubs or hedges in front of the basement walkout in the front yard, and one that we use permeable pavers in the rear yard. So those have been incorporated, and that's fine. And planning knows of this drawing. Works had conditions to ensure that we stayed far enough away from an existing utility pole with the conceived retaining wall for the parking, and that we ensure that I got to zoom in myself here, that all work basically will be done to their approval. And of course, I've done these before where we need a separate permit from works to do any of this activity with the rear parking anyway. So we have certainly put that on the drawing as well. So I'd like to think we've met all the conditions from staff. And with that, if I could turn to the variances themselves. So we're living in kind of interesting times. There's 8 variances listed here. The project, this is all out at Eglinton and Dufferin where the crosstown line is. So it's all part of this intensification. So there's a small bungalow. The additions are going in front and above and behind and converting a single family dwelling into a single family dwelling with 2 secondary suites officially. Yesterday, City Council struck down the 2 first variances, 1 and 2. They would no longer apply. Those were removed yesterday. Now, granted, it's not official till the council meeting ends, but those are conditions on secondary suites and manipulating the front face of a building to accommodate a secondary suite. Those have now disappeared. So I would like to think that they are certainly able to meet the 4 tests. If we march further down, variance 3 is FSI. We're at 1.04. The required is 0.8. I can demonstrate a couple of adjacent properties, but again, the planning staff had no concerns with the FSI. Following that, variance 4 is about the decks. The platforms are a little oversized, but the one they're talking about is at the rear of the building, which basically is looking across to the back end of the commercial buildings at Eglinton. So again, planning staff had no concerns. Variances 5 and 6 are both to do with depth and length, which are, technically they're 2 separate things, but effectively this is a rectangle that starts at the front yard setback and goes back 19 meters, the maximum depth. That means that it's about a few inches over the depth, like 0.15 of a meter, and that's more of a construction reality for us. So I'd appreciate getting that 0.15. And it means that in length is always shorter than depth, but in this case, our length and our depth are basically equal. The rectangle is just a rectangle starting at the front yard setback. The rear yard soft landscaping is at, what do we got, 16%, and that's because of the provision of the parking. And the last one is actually the most interesting. I actually worked with Natasha Zapula and Richard McMahon, the zoning plan examiner, who is ex of Committee of Adjustment, and they told us we were smartest and wisest to go in with variances for 0 spaces, as we did need the works approval to obtain the 2 parking spaces shown, meaning it's quite possible we'll never get the works department approval, and they thought it was prudent of us to ask for 0 spaces. Having said that, only 1 space is required. This property is adjacent to mass transit. I mean, I think it hits all the buttons for intensification under all provincial mandates and the best use of the investment in the mass transit system. So I'd like to think, first off, I've gone from 8 to 6, it appears, with City Council's
I'll ask you
actions
to
yesterday.
summarize.
That's what I'm just going to do. We've gone from 8 to 6 with the changes yesterday, and I do believe taken in total, the other variances do come up as minor. Thank you.
Okay, so just to clarify then, the changes that you're making, because you have noted you've reduced from 8 variances to 6, meaning that you have struck variances 1 and 2 according to what you've said. Is that correct?
No, although I wouldn't
Sorry.
mind, but what I'd be much more prudent to do is stick with them. I was actually giving that just as a bit of information. I would like to stick with 1 and 2 because until the City Council meeting closes, those changes aren't official. So I gladly will stay with requesting the 8. I was just trying to point out, in my mind, it made them more minor in the sense that they are disappearing as we speak, it appears.
Okay, so no other changes to this application, just that you would ensure that it's noted that the proposal now provides for planting hedges in the front and new basement walkout, as well as provides for permeable pavers for paths and parking spaces in the rear yard. And that you've done that.
Correct, and it also includes the works conditions bubbled on the site plan there as number 4, and that's as per the works report.
So we'll
what
just
they
have to tie
requested,
it to the updated site plan that you've submitted.
Yeah, the one thing I'd like to do is if it could be tied to the specific conditions, it's always better for us as it leaves flexibility on any matters that staff's had no concerns with, if that makes any sense.
Okay, well, I will leave that up to the decision makers on our panel to see if that's what they see fit. But we do have some other speakers, so I'll turn to my panel members. Do you have any questions of the agent before we move on? Okay, then that being said, let's move on to the next speaker. The next speaker noted is area resident Carmelo Alampi. It's the Alampi family. Carmela or Dora or Nick Alampi, who would like to speak on behalf of the family?
Madam Chair, my name is Nick Alampi. I will be speaking on behalf of the family.
Okay.
We are a owner of the property of 1558 Eglinton Avenue West, which is just to the south of the rear of the building, or the property that's in question of 71 Livingstone. So some of the addressing concerns we have with the possibility of having a parking in the rear is that with viewing the drawings and so forth, we're concerned about the turning radius into those parking spots. We do have vehicles that do park in the rear of those buildings, and we feel that the turn radius into those spots is going to be very difficult. One of the things we were thinking or suggesting is that if the retaining wall is to be removed, to widen the retaining wall to additional 3 feet on each side or 4 feet, just so that if a vehicle is going to be parking that parking spots, they have the right to with turning radius. Other addressing concerns we had was the snow removal, because the laneway does not have snow plows that do come out, and due to the fact that January of 2022 we had over 11 inches of snow, so the understanding of where they're going to be putting the snow if they have to remove the snow for vehicles to be moved out of the parking spots that are going to be built. And I believe one other question that we had was opening. I think that's it, Madam Chair. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Members, do you have any questions of the Alampi family? There being none, let's move on to the next speaker noted, area resident Alvin Pan. Mr. Pan, are you there?
No.
Yes, if you could state your name.
Oh, I don't have any comments. I don't have any comments.
If you could state your name and address just for the record, even though there's no comments.
Oh, my name is Alvin Pan. We own the property of 80 Livingstone Avenue.
Okay, great, thank you. And no comments from you. Then let's just move back on. Members, do you have any questions of Mr. Pan? All right, as we move on, he has no comments. Let's move on back to Mr. Skeen. If you could come back and address the Alampi family's concerns, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Certainly, I will. First off, I think their concerns are completely and utterly reasonable, and it all makes a lot of sense to me. This is sort of where it's a shame when the hearings are online. Had we been able to meet, there's the staff report, and I'm actually going to speak directly to the Alampis as they're obviously listening, on file, and hopefully you can access it while we're up. The Works Department has submitted a report with quite stringent demands to the committee members today, saying, look, if you go to page 2, I think it is, if you choose to approve this, that's the planning report that's up right now. That's from planning, not Works. The Works one speaks directly to the Alampis' concerns. So I'll wait a second. It won't take long to say what I'm going to say. There we go. So I think page 2 of that one. Yeah, right there. So you might want to, it's good to see them all written down. So what they say, what Works does on something like this is number 1 is directed right at me. It says the site plan drawings must be revised to illustrate the following. So that's what you saw on my drawings under the bubble numbered 4. Then they go to points 2, 3, and 4, where they say, provide written confirmation that the utility company that owns the utility pole will think this is acceptable. Point number 3, it says, provide vehicle maneuvering diagrams illustrating how a standard passenger vehicle can adequately access the proposed rear yard spaces. And point number 4, it says, maintain the existing width of the mutual right-of-way and prohibit any front parking taking place on the mutual right to ensure that vehicle access to the rear yard located at the adjacent property will not be impacted. Now, number 4 is to do with the parking that exists on site from Livingston. But the point is, the Works Department we need a permit from Works, so it's a completely separate process, and Works is basically flagging the committee right now and saying, look, we want the site plan drawing to show a bunch of our requests right now, including that you'll get a permit from us, which I've done. And it also says, and by the way, coming down the pipe, if you clear committee, you're going to have to prove to us with maneuvering diagrams that you can.
He was on a good roll there. Mr. Skeen, are you there? For some reason, maybe his cell phone battery died. Okay, it's still showing that he's logged in. Members, give us a moment if you could hear me. We're having some technical difficulties.
Did everyone just lose volume?
Yes, we did.
Yes, I'm not hearing anything. I can hear you, but I can't hear the applicant.
They can't hear us. Can you hear me? Anyone?
I can hear panel
I can
No
hear you,
problem.
Madam Chair, but I can't hear the appellant.
Okay.
Same for me.
All right, so we've got you back up on camera and we can actually hear each other. So now we're trying to get the applicant back online.
I've been
Mr.
unmuted
Skeen?
again.
Yes, you were in the middle
Hello?
of explaining, sir. You were on a good roll there, and you had gone ahead and explained a little bit more about works and utility and just what was listed in the transportation report when we got cut off momentarily. So please continue if there's anything additional. I think we got the gist of what you were saying. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, that was kind of weird. I think I literally got muted just as I was saying my concluding sentence. So I want to extend to the Alampi family the assurance that the Works Department takes these matters in hand as a separate permit process, and by no means, if the committee approves the zoning variances requested today, will the Works Department issue us the parking. And for that reason, I know this is getting somewhat technical, that is why we are applying to have 0 parking on site. We're not assuming we're going to get permission from Works. We're going to try, but we're coming to the committee assuming the worst, if that makes any sense.
Okay. Committee members, do you have any questions of the agent? Yes, Member Kidd, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just a little concerned with the parking. I know we planning staff have included a condition that the property be developed according to the site plan, which shows 2 parking spots. Is that correct? The most current one?
I think so. If you read the planning report, because I'd had discussions with Paul, he's written his requests as specific to his actual 2 requests, which is the permeable pavers in the rear yard. They choose their words quite carefully. It doesn't tie it to the whole site plan if staff wants to bring the report up.
Okay, we can take a look at that. It does include that the proposal provides permeable pavers for parking spaces in the rear yard, but you're applying for 0 parking spaces. And if we tie the condition to the site plan and the planning staff condition, that would seem to be requiring 2 parking spaces, whereas you're applying for 0 parking spaces. I'm just worried that the conditions and the requested variance are going to be in conflict.
Yeah, I understand. If I could speak to that. So planning's phrase is the proposal provides permeable pavers for paths and parking spaces in the rear yard. It's not demanding that there be parking spaces. It's stating that. And if we go back to the site plan, I think the way I worded the revision, I'm hoping is coordinated with that idea. So if we could zoom in on, it'll be that one right there. All pavers in rear yard for paths and parking spaces to be permeable pavers. So I'd like to think the way that's worded is it's not necessitating that parking spaces be provided because we're applying to have none. But should they be provided, should this works department approval be granted, that any parking spaces would then be obliged to be permeable pavers.
I just note that we're tying this to the site plan, and on the site plan it says new parking space at lane level for the 2 parking spaces at the rear.
Yeah, at this point, I didn't want to deluge the committee with paperwork, but I was going off the advice from Natasha Zapula, who's the deputy chief building official, and she was working with Richard McMahon, the zoning plan examiner. And I actually have the emails ready to send right off to staff if you'd like to see them. They felt this was the way to approach it, was to continue to label the parking spaces, but to request the 0 parking variance. So if it helps to see those emails, I can certainly send them. I know it's a bit peculiar right in the middle of a thing, but it will be there in about 30 seconds. And I'm going off their advice here, since they're the people who will be the gatekeepers on the zoning certificate ultimately and on the building permit, if that makes sense.
Yes, thank you.
It's up to members if you'd like that email sent. Please just advise and, okay. All right, any other questions or requests? Please go forward. If not, can I entertain a motion knowing everything that we've heard? And please again note the variances, forestry report, staff report, and the new updated site plan that was submitted, as well as transportation conditions, 1 letter of support. If more time is needed, or you want an internal discussion amongst committee while we're in committee mode, feel free to request. Member Bartolo, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, I've reviewed this application. It's a little complicated for a small project, but I think I understand everything that's been proposed here, and I understand the concerns of the neighbors as well. And I'm inclined to agree with the applicant that this form of intensification in these areas is appropriate, and understanding that he wants to be respectful to those neighbors and addressing their concerns. So I'm going to put forward a motion to approve this application, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, that the property be developed in accordance with the site plan drawing submitted. Number 2, that it be subject to the urban forestry memo attached. And then number 3, that it be subject to the comments noted, or the conclusions noted in the transportation memorandum attached.
Okay. Thank you, Member Bartolo. With a motion to approve this application with those stated conditions, can I get someone to second that motion? Seconded by Member Kidd. All those in favor? All those opposed? Member Hunt dissenting. Mr. Skeen, your application has been unanimously approved with those conditions. Thank you. I mean, not unanimously, but approved with those conditions. Member Hunt dissenting. Let's move on, members, to item number 22, and that is a 6 Park Lane Circle. Please note that this is a proposal to construct a new 2-story detached dwelling with an integral garage and a finished basement. Members, this has 10 variances. There are a couple of neighbors wishing to speak to this application. There is a forestry condition. Please note that there is condition number 5 that talks to the severity of the forestry report. There is a staff report with recommendations and also a transportation report of April 27th that recommends deferral. There are 5 letters of objection. Let's call out the agent and Anthony Gornick. Mr. Gornick, are you there?
Yes, I am.
If you could state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Anthony Gornick. I live at 405 The Kingsway in Toronto, M9A 3V8.
Thank you. Perhaps if you can go into providing us a presentation on the merits of your application, it would help to advise the area residents and the panels for decision making.
Yes, thank you. We have been retained to design and construct a new home at this property, and after completion of the design drawings, we request 10 minor variances, as you mentioned. We are aware of the Planning Department staff report, urban forestry report, and letters of opposition from some of the neighbors. The requested minor variances are as follows. The permitted maximum building height is 11 meters, and we propose a building height of 15.38 meters. And the permitted height of a pedestrian entrance is 1.2 meters, and we propose the entrance at 2.57 meters. Both height calculations are derived from an established average grade. The existing grades and topography at this property presently present some challenges, as the current condition has an overall inverted slope down from the street and towards the current home, and this by 1.55 meters. Our premise is to establish a new positive slope towards the street by this setting the proposed new first floor elevation and garage door elevation higher, and now need minor variances related to heights. Our proposed design improves the drainage patterns, as the entire front yard now slopes positively towards the street. And in my experiences, generally the municipality frowns on any inverted conditions, as there are issues with drainage patterns and possible flooding. We also request a minor variance related to a side yard setback distance. The permitted minimum side yard setback is 1.8 meters, and we propose a setback of 0.15 meters. This request is specifically related to a below-grade foundation wall that is not visible. Of note, the setback of the visible above-grade side wall at this particular location is 4.7 meters, and well within the allowable setback standards of the 1.8 meters. We respectfully submit this variance to be very appropriate with no negative impact. We request a minor variance for the creation of a front yard ancillary security booth. This security feature will anchor an entrance gate along the front lot line. Respectfully, we feel this feature to be consistent with the majority of the neighboring homes, as most have a very strong visual street line presence with a series of masonry piers and walls with integrated iron fences and gates. We also request 2 related minor variances, one pertaining to the driveway width and a second to the front yard parking spaces. The permitted maximum driveway width at this location is 9 meters, and we propose a driveway width of 12.19 meters. In addition, we propose to create parking spaces for 6 spots. I wish to note that these 2 variances do not require a front yard hardscape to softscape ratio variance, and as a result, we see our submission to be appropriate. As a note, the previous owner of this property have obtained approvals for 6 proposed parking spots and a driveway width at 13.25 meters, which is greater than our application today. This previous granting was in 2016. Our final submission relates to a series of minor variances for the creation of 2 rear yard ancillary buildings that will function as cabanas. The allowable height is 4 meters, and we request a variance for height at 6.19 meters and 5.98 meters respectively. In addition, the maximum height of an entrance into an ancillary building is 2.5 meters, and we propose an entrance height at 2.9 meters. The owners wish to use these rear yard buildings as an extension of their home for seasonal entertaining use only. The cabanas are designed to have food preparation and sanitary facilities, which also requires a minor variance. Respectfully, we feel these variances to be appropriate within the existing character of the neighboring properties. The property at 6 Park Lane Circle exceeds 240 meters in depth, and these proposed ancillary buildings on this lot are positioned well beyond the midpoint from the street. In addition, the existing invert topography of this site is currently 2.5 meters from the front lot line to the proposed cabana locations, which in our opinion will help conceal
If you can
these
please
two ancillary
summarize.
buildings.
You're almost out of time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I wish to address the memo from forestry and from the planning department.
You may not have a lot of time to do that, but please, if you can just quickly, in 10 seconds, tell us what you think.
Well, I think the forestry department's recommending refusal of the parking spots and the ancillary structure at the front of the property due to impact on the trees. I would say that the overall concept of raising the home and creating a positive slope from the street is basically filling in the majority of the front lot, which that will impact the sort of vegetation and trees.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there, and if there is any more questions that the committee has, they'll definitely ask you for your opinion. Right now, we do have a couple of other members who'd like to speak. Committee members, do you have any questions of the agent right now before we move on to the neighbors? There being none, let's move on to the first neighbor noted on file, and that's Bruce Evans. Mr. Evans, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you very well. State your name and address for the record, if you can, please.
Bruce Evans. I'm the adjacent neighbor at number 8 Park Lane Circle.
Okay, great. And what are your thoughts on this application?
Well, let me preface quickly that my remarks, first of all, I'm pro-development, as long as it conforms with the neighborhood characteristics and respects, the neighbor's privacy, and obviously conforms with safety and flooding issues. Now, having said that, I just received written notification 48 hours prior to my application deadline. And so I have a concern with that, and that's why I'm asking for a deferral. I didn't originally have a deferral, but now that I've gone through some of the paperwork and asked more questions, spoke to my neighbors, there's a lot of questions that we need to answer, and ideally I'd like to work with the owner's agent or the owner and the architect to address concerns and work together to build the house. I can go through the details of some of the concerns I have, but to me, I think we have to, as a neighborhood, because there's 2 other neighbors that couldn't respond in time. In fact, they were a little shocked that they didn't get any notification, and they wanted to input but didn't have the time. So I told them about it, and they just don't have the time to input at this time, but they would like to. So I could address the concerns about the height, dealing with the privacy issue, because I obviously abut the property. So, I have concerns with, shadowing. I have concerns with privacy, if there's windows overlooking our yard, that kind of thing. The ancillary buildings, the cabanas, there could be noise, there could be lights at night, there could be, and the height, we just have a hedge along our property line. So how we're going to address that? The 6 parking spaces, again, it's just a hedge that separates our yard, and people coming in at night, the headlights would all go through our yard. So that would be, privacy and noise concern. And the south setback, I'm not clear as to what's, I'm not a planner, I'm not an architect. That's why I'd like to meet and get more information and work with the guys to, you know, make a positive impact in our neighborhood. Because I have flooding. The previous owner had flooding issues and issues with the conservation and flooding plain that that property is on. So I'd like to know how that's addressed, because that obviously is going to impact us as well. So that's basically my my summary too. But idea I like to defer, because there's 10 variances. That's a lot, and you know, to comprehend and clearly understand as a homeowner. And again, I'd like to work with whoever the agent is to address the concerns and come forward with a plan.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And we note your request for a deferral, and committee members will, consider that and note that for the fact that you feel, you want to have, or other neighbors especially wanted to have even more time to be notified and to discuss with the agent. So duly noted.
Thank you.
Agents, members of the panel, do you have any questions of the area resident before we move on to the next one? Okay, let's move on then to a Tom Cody, who was logged on and waiting quite a while to speak. I hope you're there, Mr. Cody.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Please state your name and
Okay.
address for the record, please.
Sure, my name is Tom Cody. I live at 5 Park Lane Circle in Toronto. I'm across the street from the proposed house.
Okay, and what are your thoughts on this application?
I took the liberty of calling the planning department to question some of the variances, and I was a little surprised by the answer I was given, quite frank. And for example, variance pertaining to the security booth up front. I don't think there's a property in all of Bridle Path that has a security booth. I drove around again today trying to find one, and I could not find one. Not even Drake, not even the late Gordon Lightfoot, not even Prince, not even Conrad Black. So the planner told me something to the effect that, oh yeah, there are a number of them in the neighborhood, so this is not out of the ordinary. And I said, that's factually incorrect. And she answered, well, that's my opinion. The same thing with ancillary buildings. They're asking for substantial ancillary buildings in terms of area and height, a 55% increase of the maximum height, with kitchens and washrooms in them. And again, when I mentioned that to the planner, they said, oh, there's lots of ancillary buildings in the Bridle Path. And if you go to Google not Street View, I'm sorry, but the satellite view, and poke around, I dare you to find one. I only found one so far. When I checked the listing, it was a small indoor pool that was basically right next to the house. There are virtually no ancillary buildings of this size with living facilities in them. And so this variance really surprises me. And one of the problems is we had a case 3 houses away where it took us 2 years to shut down a banquet hall / party house. It drove the councillor nuts. It drove us nuts. And I'm a little concerned, not from the current people who plan to, move into the house, but perhaps subsequent owners, that when you put together a security booth, you put together substantial parking at the front, you put together separate kitchens, washrooms, and substantial ancillary buildings next to a pool, you're practically at a weekend party rental facility. And as you know, with Airbnb, et cetera, these are becoming a significant problem in the city of Toronto. So I just think that request is a bridge too far. The other problem I'm having is with the building height. And at the last minute, not at the last minute, but on the second, practically the last thing document is submitted to the file, and I can even hold it up, is a picture of the building proposed. right behind the existing construction fence that's blocking off the property. And the house, the base of the house basically rises 6 feet more than above the street level. And this document wasn't provided until very late in the process. And he also keeps Mr. Gornick keeps referencing the house across the street, which is ours, where he mentions the height of it. And he says this house will not be any higher than the house across the street. What he's leaving out is the house across the street, ours, is up on a hill. There's a very pronounced rise in our property. In fact, if you don't plow the driveway properly, you're not going to get up it because of ice. So it's almost as if, you know, we're up the hill. So you start taking measurements and claiming in the end, the height of that building won't exceed our height. I don't think that's a fair comparison. The last thing I'd like to mention, it is true, shockingly, the neighbors we contact did not receive notice, and I'm not kidding, like they're livid. I did get it. I got it very late. I got it on, I wrote it down. I got it on May 4th. On May 3rd. And even though things have been postmarked, some have been postmarked April 21, these envelopes were either, I don't know, not put in the mail, not distributed. We have excellent mail service on our street, and people did not get notification from the city.
Okay, if you could wrap up, your time is almost up.
Yes. So that being said, I'd like to request a postponement so that the proper democratic process is followed. And again, I'm going to repeat like Bruce, I'm not anti-development. I was an urban planner myself. My wife's been in real estate for decades. So have I. I was a real estate investment banker, lending for lots of real estate projects. And I think we can work this out with the builder and the prospective owners of the house. But as it is now, I don't think the democratic process has been followed. And I think some of the variances are just way too much. And I'm really wondering on a couple of issues if the planning department is, with all due respect to the planning department, is off base here. Thanks a lot. Sorry to take up your time.
Okay, thank you for that. Members, do you have any questions of Mr. Cody? That being said, there's some real concerns that have been raised. I'll invite Mr. Gornick back out to address them. And also still on the radar are 2 residents that are requesting deferral because they're feeling that they haven't had ample time or notice at all about these changes. So I'd like you to also address that, Mr. Gornick, because that would be something that the committee members, when making decisions, will also consider whether they should defer this application as well. So please, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. So in addressing the comments from our neighbor at number 8 Park Lane, he mentioned that he just received his notice 48 hours ago, which I'm not quite sure how I understand that. There's a letter on file on the Information Center with the Committee of Adjustments from him, and it's dated, I believe, May the 8th, which is 2 weeks ago. I also hand-delivered my covering letter to all the neighbors that did receive notices from the committee office as an explanation with the elevation drawings, and I made myself available to answer and field any comments or questions. I did not receive a call from any neighbor in this whole period, and my cellular number and my email address was posted there, and I was available, and I always am. And this is sort of a standard process in our Committee of Adjustments submissions. In the comments from the neighbor at number 8, I don't really understand how the specific variances impact him specifically. With the neighbor at number 5 Park Lane, he also is a kind of referencing not having enough time in fielding the information that was sent to him from the committee office or from me. He also has a letter on file from 2 weeks ago, and I also did not receive an email or a phone call from him. I was more than happy to meet with anybody so I can field any comments or questions and hopefully alleviate any concerns in doing so. The neighbor at number 5 is referencing that I made a comment specific to the height of his home at number 5. My covering letter is very specific. I am referencing a neighboring home, but it's the neighboring home to the north at number 4 Park Lane. And just in establishing that our first floor elevation is in sync with the neighbor at number 4, and that we are not raising the home to create positive drainage that is out of keeping for the area, and we are consistent between the home currently sitting at number 4 and the one that we're proposing for number 6. I think the notices were mailed out in ample time for the neighbors to sort of review this, and my hand-delivered packages were done also at the same time the notices were being mailed out from the committee. And again, I did not receive a call from anybody. I think our variances are appropriate. As far as addressing the comment with the front yard security gate, there are a few variances specific to that. So 27 Park Lane Circle has a variance for a front yard ancillary structure. 3 High Point has a variance for a front yard ancillary structure, and 5 High Point also has a variance granted for a front yard ancillary structure. I normally don't take the premise of sort of presenting past decisions in our submissions. I like to sort of do our presentation based on the merits of our submission. I feel this development is appropriate for the site and well within the existing character of what's being established in the bridle path currently. That's my submission.
Okay, thank you. Members, do you have any questions of the agent? Yes, Member Kidd, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I note the transportation staff have requested a deferral. Can you comment on that as well, please?
Yes, so transportation, they're actually endorsing our project. So I've read it very carefully. They're asking her for deferral to add one dimension onto the driveway width as this relates to the curb cut. Otherwise, the entire report is basically endorsing our submission. So we will have to go through the process of getting approvals from the department. We will make all the necessary adjustments or somewhat clarifications on our site plan submission before them, but I think the report generally is positive.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, members? Okay, there being none, you have a decision to make, having heard from a couple of the very impassioned area residents. There are a couple of deferral requests from the residents as well as from transportation services to consider. Forestry conditions apply. The staff report does state some specific recommendations, and there are 5 letters of objections. There are 10 variances noted, and some explanations to all of it from the agent. Can I entertain a motion from the panel, please? Yes, Member Bartolo.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, through you. I recognize some of the concerns of the neighbors involved here, and with respect to future use and what could happen, and noise and light. Unfortunately, that's not within our purview, and we can't predict and assume that the applicant is going to be causing a disturbance. That being said, I generally agree with what's being proposed by the applicant here. I don't think it's out of the nature or out of the character of the neighborhood. At the same time, I do agree with the recommendations of the staff report in regards to variance number 6 and the parking spots within the front yard. Therefore, I will put forward a motion to approve this application subject to the following revisions: that variance number 6 be denied, and that variance and that it be subject to TPPR condition number 2. as noted in the urban forestry memo.
Okay, and nothing to note from transportation. You're leaving that out of it, and no deferrals, right?
That's right.
Okay.
That's correct.
Thank you. So, Member Bartolo, with a motion to approve this application with those specific conditions, including deletion of variance number 6 in accordance with the staff report and those conditions of forestry. Can I have someone to second this motion? Seconded.
Excuse me,
Yes.
Madam Chair. I just have one question with regard to the motion. Mr. Bartolo, I noticed forestry had included condition 2 and 5 in their. Did you want to include 5? I noticed you just mentioned condition 2.
If you can give me a second to review, I don't see number 5 referenced in the material.
Maybe I got that wrong. Let me check.
No,
I
you are
could be
correct.
wrong as well.
There is number 5, yeah.
Yeah, I think they were concerned about some of the trees out front.
Through you, Madam Chair, 5 is a denial request. It's not a condition. It's a denial request.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm tracking on that. And number 2 requires them to submit an application to injure or remove.
Okay, my mistake. Apologies. Carry on. Yeah.
Yes, so continuing, Mr. Bartolo is moving ahead with forestry condition number 2, right? And anyone to second that motion? Seconded by Member Manning. All those in favor? And all those opposed? Member Kidd and Member Hunt dissenting. And for myself, I will go against that motion as well. So what that means is that we do need a new motion to move forward. Member Manning put her hand up first. Go ahead.
Considering that motion wasn't passed, I'll make a motion to defer the application so that the applicant can discuss with the neighbors as well as transportation.
Okay, motion from Member Manning to defer this application sine die in order to have further discussions with transportation and the neighbors to perhaps prepare an application that may meet some of their needs. Can I have someone to second that motion? Seconded by Member Hunt. All those in favor? I'll carry that. That is a motion approved to defer this application sine die. Thank you so much, Mr. Gornick. Let's move on, members, to item number 23, and that is number 42 Gwendolyn Crescent. Number 42 Gwendolyn Crescent is a proposal to construct a new dwelling. Members, please note there's 2 variances. There's forestry conditions, a staff report of May 4th that has some conditions. TRCA did send in a report that they just need our ravine and natural features protection approval to proceed with the permit. That was just a note to the agent, and then there's 1 letter of support. Members, there is no one here to speak to this application. Do you require a presentation?
Mr. Chair, Madam Chair, I'm here as the presenter.
Yes, I'm going to call you in a moment. I was just speaking with the panel, but yes. Who is there? Is that Sia Sanjani?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, yes. Maybe, okay, state your name and address for the record, please.
Sorry, Madam Chair, for the confusion. My name is Sia Zanjani, from 15 Allstate Parkway, and I'm the architect and the agent for this application.
Okay, thank you. Members, just continuing, do you feel you require a presentation for this application? There being none, Mr. Sanjani, the members don't feel they require a presentation, but is there anything additionally that you'd like to share with the members before they take this into committee for decision-making?
No, fairly straightforward. There's actually 5 letters of support, just to respect the committee's time. We have nothing to add, and therefore we can have a motion.
Okay, thank you. Members, if there are no questions for Mr. Sanjani, please note 2 variances, some forestry conditions, staff report conditions, and 1 letter of support. TRCA just made a note to the agent, and no one here to speak to this application. Can I get a motion, please? Motion from Member Hunt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe that this application is fairly straightforward. So I would move approval of it, subject to the May 4th urban forestry standard requirements and the May 4th planning report, where they wanted to place a condition that it be developed substantially in accordance with the east and west side elevation drawings as attached to their report.
Okay, motion from Member Hunt to approve this application with those specific conditions. Someone to second this motion? Seconded by Member Manning. All those in favor? Unanimously approved. We do have quorum, and so that's been unanimously approved with those conditions. Thank you so much, Mr. Sanjani.
Thank you.
Okay. Members, if we can move on to application number 22, which is 55 FENN Avenue. 55 FENN Avenue, members, is a proposal to construct a 2-story addition and full 3rd-story addition to an existing single-family dwelling, and to include interior alterations throughout with the secondary suite. Please note, members, that there are 10 variances. There is forestry conditions attached to this. The staff report is asking that we refuse variance number 5, but there are 2 letters of support and no one to speak to this application. Do you require a presentation? Okay, none being noted. Are we seeing, I think I see Member Manning's head saying yes or no?
Just in regards to variance number 5, I would appreciate an explanation.
Absolutely. Sure. So let's get Jim Kotsopoulos on the line. Mr. Kotsopoulos, are you there?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Yes, I am.
Yes, thank you. And if you can state your name and address just for our records, please.
Jim Kotsopoulos, 27 Field Flower Crescent, Richmond Hill, L4E 5E9.
All right. And according to Member Manning wanting to know a little bit about the refusal of variance number 5, if you could provide us with a short presentation on the merits of this application, addressing specifically that point on variance number 5, that would be appreciated.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you to Member Manning. This is a renovation that will result in the design of what we consider to be a back split. So in other words, there is going to be a 2-story component along the FENN Avenue streetscape. And then because there's a 1 meter grade differential between the front and the back, at the rear, you end up with a 3-story component. However, Madam Chair, I would like to advise that out of the 3 stories, the bottom story is the actual exposed basement. So you really at the back, even though technically by definition, we have 3 stories, we actually have 2 functional stories, and then the exposed basement. So Madam Chair, so we feel that albeit I don't disagree with staff's comments, the intent of the official plan is to make sure that you don't end up with a streetscape situation where you dominate with 3 stories. But in this case, at the street level, we have 2 stories and then 3 at the back. And that at the back is a technicality because of the 1 meter grade differential between the front and the back. And Madam Chair, walking around this neighborhood, and we did provide some pictures, there are a number of recent constructions that have provided for some very prominent 2-story brand new homes that obviously, given the look of those from a streetscape perspective, we feel that the proposal for these lands would be in keeping and fitting with those and would not create any negative impacts whatsoever. Those are my comments, Madam Chair, if you subject to any further clarifications.
Okay, thank you. Members, do you have any questions of the agent, Kotsopoulos? Okay, there being none, there's no one else to speak to this application. 10 variances, forestry staff report, refusing number 5 is the request, and 2 letters of support. Can I get a motion, please? Motion from Member Manning.
Through you, Madam Chair, I've listened to the applicant's submissions, and I feel that this is very much a technical variance and that the prevailing character of the neighborhood is maintained. So despite the staff report, I would like to make a motion to approve this application as is, subject to the conditions of forestry.
Okay, so just approving the application as is with forestry, and no direction to the staff report, no note of that. So I just wanted to be clear on that. Can I get a seconder for that motion? Seconded by Member Kidd. All those in favor? And opposed?
I'm not opposed, Madam Chair. It cut out for a good chunk of it, and I had to log back out. So I'll just abstain from
Oh,
this one.
you're
'Cause I
just
didn't hear them.
abstaining. Okay, so we do have quorum with just the 3 members. If you could make sure that you note Member Bartolo has abstained from this. And so we have a unanimous approval with those conditions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee.
Okay. Members, let's move on. I think we could go till item number 27 and then take a break if we can hold out, but let's see. Let's move to item number 25, which is 870 Millwood Road. 870 Millwood Road is, we've got a couple of members here to speak. There's a Joseph Mazzatelli. Are you there?
Yes.
Representing?
Yes.
Can you please state
Yes.
your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, Joseph Mazzatelli, 608 Oriole Parkway, Toronto, Ontario.
Okay, great. Members, this application has 4 variances. There is a transportation memo that recommends deferral, and there's 1 letter of objection and a couple of speakers. Mr. Mazzatelli, if you could provide us with a brief presentation on the merits of your case, that would help the members understand a bit better.
Yes, thank you. This proposal is for a 3rd floor addition to an existing small 2-story apartment building. This is a positive improvement to the site and to the building and to the neighborhood in terms of its intensification and small-scale appropriateness. The owner is interested in providing more affordable rental units. There are no adverse impacts to the neighborhood as the scale is simply the 3rd floor addition and we're not altering the ground floor or the site. There are 2 letters of objection, but I find that they are more of a personal nature and not very severe in terms of their comments. We have no objections from the planning department. We have no objections from neighbors regarding parking. We believe this meets the 4 tests, that is, it is desirable and minor in nature and in keeping with the zoning and with the new intensification approach of the city. I've submitted drawings and also photographs and other Committee of Adjustment decisions. There are 3-story buildings, apartment buildings across the street from us. We are currently only 2-story. There are 5-story and 4-story other buildings in other parts of the neighborhood. So this is not in any way objectionable in terms of the scale or the size. We do not have any height variances. We do not have any GFA or variances. The site proposal is not overdeveloped. And there is plenty of parking on the street as it is a corner property. The existing conditions are as they are, so the variance, some of the variances relate to that in terms of it being existing. And in terms of the variances, we are pleased to remove one of them immediately, and that would be the variance regarding to the waste and recyclable material. So could we please remove item 6?
Okay, so you're asking to modify your application, you're removing item number 6?
Yes, and even though transportation only replied 3 days ago, we did respond to them, and they did send in a letter of support with reduced parking. So hopefully the owner is wishing that you might approve.
I'm sorry,
all the
I'm
variances.
confused here. I'm not seeing an item number 6. Are you sure you don't, are you looking at the right public application? We only show 4 variances here. Are you referring to, which variance are you referring to?
Yeah, sorry, I was looking at the report, at the initial report. So could we please remove the item regarding the waste recyclable material?
That is
So item
variance
2.
number
Yeah.
2, which is all waste and recyclable material must be stored in a wholly enclosed building. The proposed waste and recyclable material is not stored in a wholly enclosed building. So you're requesting to remove item number 2. Variance
Yes.
number 2. Okay, so it's variance number 2.
And as I said, the transportation did respond with a positive letter 2 days ago. And so we do have that support from them.
I don't see that letter on file. We have a May 1st letter requiring deferral. What letter are you referring to?
There's another letter dated May 9th.
May 9th. Okay, staff
Yes.
is checking into that for the moment, if there is anything, and I'll allow you to complete your presentation as
That
we...
letter supports our proposal with the condition that I removed some of the tandem parking. Currently on the site, there's a driveway separating the 2 buildings, and it's used for parking. But transportation has very strict rules about what they consider to be parking. So, as I said, we'd like to remove item 6, and in terms of item 7 and 8, they could be removed.
You keep referring to these items. You need to start referring to the variances because our members
Yes, I'm
don't
sorry.
have that.
Yes, I'm sorry. In terms of items 3 and 4,
Yes.
if the committee wishes to today, we could remove those, although the owner was hoping that you might accept a proposal with those to remain.
Okay, we're not
definitely-
negotiating
definitely
here.
item 2 is
If
out.
you're going to remove it, you have to remove it. If you don't, we will make a decision based on what is there. So it is totally your choice, but
so-
we don't negotiate.
Yes, so then in that case, we would like to remove 2, 3, and 4 and have this to be, more of a simple application.
Okay, so you're requesting to remove variances 2, 3, and 4. And so all we're left with is 1 variance, and that 1 variance is the minimum distance between residential buildings on the same lot is 11 meters where there's openings in a dwelling units. Each main wall, the proposed distance between the walls is 6.99 meters. So that's the only one that's there as a variance.
Yes.
Okay, And I don't see the new updated transportation report, but I'll take it that the other three that you're eliminating has addressed those concerns regardless of transportation. So, and I see that
Can I
they,
just ask?
okay, so they've approved, I'm seeing transport now has sent in that email saying, you know, basically that they've approved the revised, the application with those revisions. I see, Member Manning, you have a question?
No, it's okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, so yes, Member Hunt?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm confused here. There's the variances 2, 3, and 4 are there's requirements under the bylaw 569-2013. Could I get a clarification from the applicant that in fact those requirements are going to be met, notwithstanding you're removing them from your application?
So the objection to those was from transportation, and if we revise the site plan to accommodate transportation comments, which only now shows 4 cars, one of them is a legal barrier accessible parking space, and not providing tandem. So those 2 variances are removed. If we then apply the support from transportation in the second letter.
Does that decrease your confusion, Mr. Member Hunt, or it increases it?
Well, I'm not sure. Is he saying that there will be an accessible parking space?
Yes, there will be.
All right, and there will be no tandem parking spaces.
Yes, agreed.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so that should meet transportation's concerns, and that was updated in the email that was provided. Do we have any other questions for this agent before we move to the, yes, Member Manning, go ahead.
Variance number 1 is an existing condition, correct?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Variance number 1, it's an existing condition, right?
Yes, that's definitely existing. There's nothing we can do about that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. No other, yes, Member Manning?
I'm just putting my hand up for a motion.
Oh. No, we have to hear from 2 other area residents, so if we just hold on 1 second. Let's move over to an Angela Plover. Ms. Plover? Are you there?
Yes, I am.
Yes, if you could state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Angela Plover, and I live in Suite 45 at 870 MILLWOOD Road, which is the applicant for this project.
So you're at that location, and now that you know that variances number 2, 3, and 4 have been removed and variance number 1 is existing, do you have a concern with the application still?
Yes, I do.
Okay, please go ahead.
My first concern is that I saw in the information online that we were to have received a notification by mail, and not one of the tenants here at 870 Millwood Road has received the notice of this particular meeting. So I informed a number of people, and they had no idea about it. The only information that was available to us was a sign that was posted on the south side of the building. And it's, to my knowledge, it's not set at the proper height. And so there were people here who that was not accessible information for them. I sent, when I realized that nobody had received a mail, a mailing of this notice, which my understanding was that it was part of the Planning Act, that was a requirement. I sent a letter into to the committee 2 days ago. So there's a letter. It's entitled Letter of Objection, May 9th, 2023. So that elaborates on my concerns about that. So nobody here has been notified about this particular public hearing.
Just to share with you, you're in a building. The proper way of notification is not that everyone in the building would be getting it. It would be posted somewhere at a visible area, usually towards the front of the building.
Okay. Yeah,
Is
there
there
was no
any
posting.
Yeah, is there
There's
anything?
No, there was no posting. The only information was posted on the sign on the south side lawn. So I was able to follow the links and find the information, but other tenants here have no idea about this project or about this particular meeting. So that was my first concern. I don't know if that
Yeah, where
requires
it
a
was
deferment.
posted, I have just checked with city planning. That is normal. So,
All right.
okay.
All right. So then
Yes, go
my
ahead.
next concern is because I have no information about this particular construction project. So in this particular building, there are an existing 11 apartments with tenants. And so I would just like some more information. I have no information from the owner or from the architect. So I'd like some information about what is involved as far as tenant safety for an addition of a third floor on top of an existing building. Will there be temporary evictions? If there's not, are there safety concerns for us living here? Also, obviously, I would have concerns about noise and the reasonable enjoyment of my apartment. And also, I was a bit confused by the parking, because the architect mentioned that there's plenty of parking on the street because we're on a corner. Actually, there is no parking in front of the building because we are on a corner.
There's no
also-
parking concerns at this time. Those variances have been limited, and I'll ask you to stick to the application and just the variances that were in discussion, because a lot of what you're bringing up is not within scope of this committee.
Okay. All right. So those are my concerns then.
All right, thank you so much for that. Members, do you have any questions of Ms. Plover? Okay, that being said, let's move on to the next speaker, Valerie Clark. Valerie Clark, are you there? If you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, my name is Valerie Killian Clark, and my address is also 870 Millwood Road.
Okay, and if your
Unit
concerns...
44.
Yes, I see that here, Unit 44. Just to share with you, you've heard what Ms. Plover had said, and we, a lot of those is not what within the scope of this committee. We could deal with only the variances, and right now,
Yes,
we're just one variance that is noted that has nothing to do with the parking whatsoever. That's been met, and that's an existing condition. So is there
correct.
anything
Yeah,
further that you'd like to share?
Yeah, so my concern is regarding the existing structure and whether or not it will be able to support another level. And honestly, I am, I like my landlord and everything, but I'm pretty worried because we've already seen problems with the existing structure. For example, 2 months ago, there was a leak from the main floor unit into the basement unit, as well as some significant warping in the floors. Just to say that, it's an aging building built in the 1930s. It's concrete and lads. There are no beams. So I'm just thinking that, it's already, the building is already kind of breaking down. I'm just wondering, is putting another floor on top really the best way to sort of manage an aging building? Like, I know there's the argument to increase rental units in the city, but there are lots of other ways to do that with an existing structure. And then my second concern is about the existing asbestos in the basement. Or not basement, but like laundry utilities room. Are there any plans to sort of seal that off or
These are
remove?
things that are, with not within the scope. Again, at the beginning of the session, we've stated that let's stick to what the variance is and the merits of the application itself. This has, no bearing on the application.
Including my concern about whether or not it can support the level.
Yeah, well, every project will have to go through building inspection. I'll leave the agent to just quickly address that, but it would not be put forward if there was a concern around the safety and the ability for this building to take on new levels. There's a lot of planning that goes into that. But I'm not going to speak to that. That will be the agent who will kind of address your concerns. Is there anything else that you'd like to share?
No, that's everything.
Okay, thank you. Members, do you have any questions of Ms. Clark? Okay, there being none, let's bring the agent back out. Mr. Mazzatelli, if you can quickly just share your thoughts on what you've heard from the two residents that live there, and then we can move into committee for decision making.
Yes, thank you. In terms of the first complaint, the appropriate sign was posted, printed, and photographed and sent to the committee, and that was approved. And it was suggested by the committee that it be put on the MILLWOOD Road side because that was more visible to traffic and to passerbys. So that was all done correctly. In terms of the building, it's a two-story building, and it's solid brick, and we expect that there are no major problems, but obviously structural will be looked at prior to any construction or even prior to any building permit application. So obviously we're going to follow all the rules that are required and appropriate for the building structure.
Okay, is there any questions, members, for Mr. Mazzatelli? Okay, that's no other questions. Let's move into decision making. Committee members, for variances, transportation did have an initial deferral request, but since they've had discussions and an updated sort of plan with the agent, they have now submitted their removal of that deferral request, and they now approve the application. There is changes made by the applicant such that variances number 2, 3, and 4 have been removed. With that being said, can I get a motion? Motion from Member Manning.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve this application with the removal of variances 2, 3, and 4, and subject to the conditions of forestry.
Okay, thank you. Motion from Member Manning to approve with those conditions. Anyone to second that motion? Seconded by Member Bartolo. All those in favor? Okay, unanimously approved with those conditions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to item number 26, which is 235 HANNA Road. Members, 235 HANNA Road is an application to construct a new additions and front covered porch. There is one person to speak to this application. We've got the agent Cindy McPhee. Ms. McPhee, are you there? You're unmuted, Ms. McPhee. If you can state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, Cindy McPhee. Our business address?
Yes.
1600 Bayview Avenue, Suite 207, Newmarket, Ontario.
Okay. Members, there are 5 variances, forestry conditions, 13 letters of support, and 1 letter of objection. Because we do have someone to speak to this application, Ms. McPhee, if you can provide a short presentation of the merits of your application. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. There's someone registered to speak in against us, our application?
Well, yes, it's showing an Ian and Karen Hanning.
No, I'm sorry. Those are the homeowners.
Oh, it's noted as area residents, so.
Yes, Ian and Karen, yeah, they're the homeowners that I'm
They're the
representing
owners.
today.
Okay, that being said,
Yes.
I'm going to turn it over to members to ask if there are any, do you require a presentation at this time? None required at this time. Ms. McPhee, is there anything that you would like to share before the committee takes this into decision making?
I just want to point out that Ian and Karen, they've been at this property for over 10 years, and they have made an extremely valiant effort in contacting all of their neighbors, which I think is shown in the support letters that we have put forth to the committee. So thank you very much for looking at our application, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay, thank you for that. Members, do you have any final questions? If not, can we entertain a motion? There are 5 variances, forestry conditions, 13 letters of support, and 1 letter of objection. Member Kidd with a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this is an appropriate proposal for this property and minor in nature. I'd like to put forward a motion to accept the proposal subject to forestry condition number 1.
Member Kidd with a motion to approve this application with those conditions, seconded by Member Manning. All those in favor? Unanimously approved with those conditions. Thank you, Ms. McPhee.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, and let's move on to the final one before we take a break. That's item number 27, and this is 109 Helendale Avenue. 109 Helendale Avenue is to enclose the existing front porch. There's no one to speak to this application. Members, there is only 1 variance on file. Do you require a presentation? I'll bring out the agent in a second, but I'm just double checking. None noted. Then let's bring out the agent, Kevin Lowe. Mr. Lowe, are you there?
Madam Chair, I've just been advised by Kevin Lowe that it's actually a, one second, Davis, I believe. Davis Chang?
Davis Chan is speaking on behalf of this.
That's correct.
Mr. Chang, are you there?
It is.
Yes, if you could state your name and
Yes.
address for the record, please.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and member of committee. My name is Davis Chang from KCCL Architects. I'm presenting on behalf of applicant Kevin Lowe,
Okay.
the authorized agent. Yeah.
Right. We don't require a presentation at this time. However, if there's anything you'd like to just tell the committee members, they would like to take this into committee for decision making right now. Is there anything?
Okay, I'm hoping the committee will approve the application as the front yard soft landscaping will remain the same, that it will be no negative impact to the street view. And also there are similar properties on the same street which also enclose their front porch, such as number 44 and number 86 Helendale Avenue. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you for that. Members, if there are no questions, 1 variance, no other reports, can I get a motion? Member Manning with a motion.
Yeah, this is a pretty, through you, Madam Chair, this is a pretty straightforward application. I do believe it is minor and it meets the 4-part test. There's no objections from planning, so I'd like to approve this application with no conditions.
Okay, motion from Member Manning to approve without conditions, seconded by Member Bartolo seconds this motion, and all in favor? Everyone unanimously approves your application. Mr. Chang has been approved without conditions. And number
Thank you.
28 has been deferred. When we come back, we can start with number 29, if you could be back by 4:35. Thank you. All right, we're back, and let's begin with item number 29. Number 29 is 253 Melrose Avenue. Please note that this is an application to construct a new two-story detached dwelling. There's a couple of speakers that are going to talk to this application. There's 6 variances, a forestry report, a May 2nd transportation report that actually recommends approval, and there are 3 letters of objection. Let's bring out Jonathan Benskowski. Mr. Benskowski?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair Committee.
If you could state your name and address just for the PM session record.
Jonathan Benskowski, 301 Keewatin Avenue.
All right, thank you. Mr. Benskowski, if you could provide us with a brief presentation of the merits of your application. We do have a couple of folks online who wish to speak to this application.
Yeah, if we could bring up the site plan, please. 3 of the 6 variances are really as a result of a right-of-way that is located on the eastern portion of the property. That right-of-way really is what's causing the driveway width as well as both landscaping requests. If we look on the site plan proposed, there is a large tree in the front yard. We have narrowed the driveway at the mouth along Melrose, and we have increased it to accommodate the vehicle itself. So again, okay, thank you. Yes, perfect. So if we zoom in there, we do have an existing right-of-way that is located, again, along that east portion that is 1.04 meters in width. That 1.04 meter right-of-way is causing the driveway request variance width, as well as both soft landscaping, as well as the front yard landscaping variance and the soft landscaping variance in the front yard. That must be maintained as a hard surface. As we can see, the adjacent property at 251 does have a brick garage located in the rear yard. So in terms of those 3 variances, although maybe not technical in nature, they're really unavoidable as a result of maintaining that right-of-way. To turn to the other 3 variances itself, the proposed depth, really when we're looking at a lot that's about 150 feet deep or 45.72 meters, in my opinion, it is able to accommodate a deeper dwelling. In this case, we are requesting a depth of 18.97, again, in relation to a 45.72 meter lot, depth lot. In terms of how that affects the amenity space of the adjacent properties, there's ample room for both the properties to the east as well as the west for the proper enjoyment of their rear yard. The eaves, again, is really a result of having to push the dwelling towards the west because of that existing right-of-way. That side is side yard setback compliant. The request is only for the reduction of the eaves itself. In terms of the FSI, again, we are requesting a 0.05 increase of the FSI, which in my opinion is minor in nature, given again the fact that this is an extremely deep lot and we don't have a side yard setback requirement, as well as a main wall. We have no main wall, no front wall, no side wall, no overall height request. So again, taking into account the right-of-way really leading to 3 of the variances requested and the depth of the lot, I think the impact of this dwelling is positive to the neighborhood and will have no adverse impact on either adjacent neighbor to the east or to the west. And I'm happy to hear what the neighbors have to say in terms of their concerns.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Members, do you have any questions of Mr. Benskowski before we move on to the speakers? Okay, there being none, let's bring out the first speaker that's registered and waiting online, and that's either an Anna or Linda. You're in the same household, so one of you will speak. Calafatides. Is there an Anna or Linda Calafatides?
It's Calafatides, and my sister Linda will speak for me.
Okay,
you
not
asked
a problem.
that. You asked you. I'm abiding by your request to allow only.
Hello, are you able to hear me?
Yes, sure, not a problem. Ms. Calafatides, if you could state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Linda Calafatides. I am representing my mother, Aphrodite Calafatides, who owns and resides at 247 Melrose Avenue.
Okay, thank you so much. If you can share your thoughts on this application, that'll be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a request that you reject the application for the variances to the bylaws regarding plans for 253 Melrose Avenue. My family has witnessed many changes over the decades on Melrose Avenue, so it is with confidence that we say these variances will adversely affect the character of our neighborhood and reduce its vital green spaces. The variances will adversely affect residents' physical and mental health and well-being. They will also contradict the City of Toronto's Transform to Net Zero's strategy by, number one, increasing the width of the driveway, which compounds the flooding and runoff challenges we face locally and globally, and it reduces green space. Number two, by increasing the depth of the structure by nearly 2 meters, just shy of 2 meters, beyond the maximum in the bylaws. This will block sunlight, it blocks air, blocks sight lines, and again, reduces green space. Number three, the projecting eaves going not to the minimum of 30 centimeters, but 16 centimeters. Again, compounds flooding and runoff. Both my sister on Rowe Avenue, a few blocks away, and my next door neighbor, where I live in Toronto, have suffered extreme adverse conditions due to eaves overhanging too close to their properties. Those were new builds that had variances. So number four, further reducing the bylaws minimum for soft landscaping, reducing the front yard landscaping, that's number six. That reduction is it not only affects street view, but again affects our green spaces on Melrose Avenue. As to the floor space, well, that is a literal footprint beyond the maximum at a time when we are trying to reduce our footprints. Madam Chair, I'm a secondary school teacher and a mom. When you work with youth every single day, the climate crisis bubbles dangerously on the front burner. My mother understands it. My students understand it. Even the City of Toronto understands this because it's transformed to net zero strategies and goals. It's a massive investment in time and in money. That's taxpayers' money, I presume. It should be noted also that many more people on my street who will be directly affected by these variances to existing bylaws, those bylaws which protect us, would be here sharing their similar views if this virtual hearing weren't profoundly inaccessible to them. Yes, it is a huge impact that it will have on the neighborhood that we all love and know extremely well after being there for many, many years. And in summary, we ask that the city preserve the character and the green spaces vital to our neighborhood by stopping these contradictions, remaining consistent in its valuable mandates to achieve its net zero goals, by rejecting these variances. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you for that. And members, do you have any questions of the neighbor? Then there being none, let's move on to Dominic Vona. Dominic Vona, are you there?
Yes, no comment.
Okay, so no comment from Mr. Vona. Then if that's the case, let's move back to Jonathan Benskowski. You've heard some of the impassioned commentary from the Kalafatidis household. Can you address those concerns, please?
Yes, I think there's really two concerns to address. One is the eaves, and one is in relation to the front yard landscaping. If we could go back to the site plan, please, and really zoom in at the front. Again, due to the right of way being located on this property, the necessity for the width of this driveway is really unavoidable for any new dwelling. As we see here, we've actually included a dimension that shows the driveway width of 3.2 meters. So this isn't a case where we put a 1.5 car garage through that front main wall. This is a zoning bylaw compliant 3.2 meter interior dimension for that garage. Again, if we did not have to have that hardscaping between the two dwellings, we would be happy not to have that there. Additionally, we also have curved the front access to ensure that that 0.3 meter diameter boulevard tree is maintained. And we have submitted an arborist report that actually addresses that also. And if we turn to the eaves itself, in terms of an eave overhang, we can see from the adjacent dwelling to the west, we have essentially a mirrored side yard setback that would be very similar to what is being proposed before you today. And in fact, if we see the dotted line of the existing house that sat on the property before the application that is before you today, is closer to that side lot line. What we often see in neighborhoods where we have these mutual right-of-ways that access the rear, we see a rhythm of this, a greater setback between the two dwellings, where in this case, we can see where the right-of-way is, and then a reduced setback on the opposite side, really to be able to accommodate a house. Now, again, keep in mind, we do not have a side yard setback that's associated with the eave encroachment. So really, this is the standard design and site layout for a dwelling of this nature. And we can see, again, through the repetition of the dotted line of the existing dwelling being removed, that this is a condition that already exists in the neighborhood and really throughout neighborhoods that have 25-foot lots with right-of-ways like this between the dwellings. And I'm happy to answer any questions the committee might have.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Members, do you have any questions of the agent at this time? If not, you've heard what the neighbors had to say and you've heard the rebuttal. There's six variances, forestry conditions, and the May 2nd transportation recommends approval. Can I get a motion on this application? Member Bartolo.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. In hearing both sides and understanding the application, I understand the dimensioning and geometry issue that the applicant has proposed here with respect to the driveway, and I accept it. Therefore, I'm going to put forward a motion to approve this application, subject to the conditions noted in the urban forestry memo attached.
Okay, thank you. And Member Bartolo, with a motion to approve this application subject to forestry, and that is Member Hunt seconds that motion. All those in favor? And your application has been unanimously approved with those conditions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, panel.
All right. Members, let's move on to application number 30. Please note there's no one to speak to this application, and this is number 242 Haddington Avenue. And this is a proposal to construct a deck in the rear yard of the existing dwelling. There's only one variance noted for here, and Ida Evangelista is the agent. Ms. Evangelista, are you there?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members. Ida Evangelista on behalf of the owners of 242 Haddington.
Okay, thank you. And everyone, members, do you require a presentation? There being none, Ms. Evangelista, is there anything final that you'd like to say to members before they take this into committee for deliberation?
The one thing that I will add that the additional space on the deck, because the house does represent 33.4%. With the deck, it would have been approximately 38%. So the addition to the deck is quite minimal. We do not have any other variances related to this. So, and this is something that, many of the neighbors do have in the neighborhood. It just wasn't completed when the home was built.
Okay, thank you for that information. Members, do you have any final questions of Ms. Evangelista? If not, there's no other conditions, just one variance. Can I get a motion, please? Motion from Member Hunt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe this is very straightforward. There's no department comments or concerns, and there's been no indication of neighborhood opposition. So I would move approval as is.
Okay, motion from Member Hunt to approve this application as is, seconded by Member Manning. All those in favor? Ms. Evangelista, your application has been unanimously approved without condition. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
You too. Move on to item number 31, members, and this is 6B Stewart Avenue. Please note that this is a proposal to construct a new deck at the rear of an existing dwelling, and the application was deferred on August 11th last year to discuss with neighbors and review planning comments. Please note that there's no one here to speak to this application. There are 4 variances, forestry report. There is a staff report asking that variance number 4 be modified and that a privacy screen be constructed. There's a letter of support, and I'll invite the agent, Mr. Glenn Rubinoff, to come online.
Yes. Yes, good afternoon. It's Glenn Rubinoff, 18 Gloucester Lane, Toronto, Ontario.
Great. Mr. Rubinoff, are you making any revisions to this application?
No, but I will just kind of summarize a little bit about the what happened in the past. It was deferred to speak with the neighbor. We now have a letter from that immediate neighbor, the one adjacent, who sent a letter of support in, and that was the main question that came up, was that their understanding and their support of this application. This is built in line with the house, which is built already. So the house is built already at a 2-foot setback, and we just want to build the deck over top of an existing walkout, which is also built in line with the house. So the deck is going no closer than where the house is. It's just simply some of the variances are, we're permitted to project 2.5 meters into the rear yard, and we're 3.25. So it's a 0.75 meters, 2.5 feet extended beyond what the bylaw says. The deck itself is under the 5%, or at the 5%, which is permitted, but because of the side yard variance, they're counting it as coverage. As soon as the side yard variance is approved, it no longer counts in coverage. So it's kind of a funny, that's one of the notations you'll see on variance number 2. But basically it's a deck that goes across the back of the house from one side to the other. There are no issues with regards to providing a privacy screen. But like I said, that neighbor is sent a letter of support in. And we feel that this is a reasonable application to add a deck on the rear. And like I said, it's building on top of an existing walkout and extends about 0.75 meters beyond what's permitted.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that explanation and some further information. Members, do you have any questions of Mr. Rubinoff? There being none, and there's no one to speak to this application. Again, the 4 variances, forestry report. Mr. Rubinoff did explain that he's not modifying the report, even though staff has asked about variances number 4 and a privacy screen. There's no modifications that's being made, and that's been provided in an explanation by Mr. Rubinoff just now. And there is a letter of support that was discussed and on file. Can I get a motion on this application? If you need to discuss within committee, just please let me know, and if not, we'll entertain a motion when you're ready. Member Bartolo, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. reviewed the application here, and I understand the arguments put forth by the applicant. I also understand the logic of the plans examiner here, so I'm going to put forward a motion to approve this application subject that a 1.8 meter privacy screen would go along the eastern part of the deck.
Okay, motion from Member Bartolo to approve the application. Will you also be making it subject to forestry? Sorry, I just...
Yes, my mistake, and subject to the conditions of the urban forestry memo attached.
All right, so it'll be subject to forestry and subject to one aspect of the staff report in that the privacy screen be erected on the eastern line as indicated in the staff report. Anyone to second that motion? Seconded by Member Kidd. All those in favor? Right, unanimously approved, so approved with urban forestry conditions and that one small aspect of the staff report as it relates to the privacy screen. Thank you, Mr. Rubinoff.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
You too. Members, let's move on to item number 32. And that is number 45, Canary Crescent. Members, this is an application to construct a two-story single detached dwelling with an integrated garage, front porch, rear deck, and rear basement walkout. There's no one to speak to this application. Members, there are 12 variances. There is a forestry memo in which they're asking for denial. That's number 5 was noted. And there's a staff report of March 2nd with a condition that's attached, and there was an April 25th one that reiterates the same March 2nd position. Let's invite Mengdi Zen online. Mr. Zen, are you there?
Good afternoon, community members and Madam Chair.
Right.
My name is Meng DC, and my address is 2710 14th Avenue, Markham.
Okay. Mr. Z, is that how we pronounce
Yes.
it? Thank you for that correction.
Yeah. See it.
Members, I will just ask you if you require a presentation on this, as there's no one else to speak to it. Yes.
I would appreciate it.
Okay, so there's a couple members that would appreciate a presentation. If you can share your thoughts on this application. And please also note, the forestry context as well as, any staff conditions that's being requested.
Okay. Can I have the floor plan? I mean, the site plan on the screen, please. Yes, I'll speak to the variances. Regarding to the forestry denial variances, number 2 is the 0.95 meters west side setback, which is at the front of it, and mainly just at that point of the houses, at the corner of the houses. That's the variances. Further back to the back, then which is going like a much wider. It's actually due to the size or the shape of the lot. So that's one of the requirements that we have. And now regarding to number 4, variance number 4. The front yard setback is because we do have the tree protection in mind when I started to design the house. Because if I push the house back, and then I will require a rear yard setback, and I will actually hit into the tree protection zone at the rear. So right now, then I will get tree injury applications. So that's why I situated the house forward, because the one at the very front of the house, the tree at the very front of the house is kind of like not in a very good condition. And also, if you look at it, right now we are actually submitted a request to remove the tree. But in my mind, if there's any case, then we are actually less than 25% of the, our excavation at the front portion, at the front corner of it, is less than 25%. So we might have a chance of like keeping the tree. But that would be after your approval, and then we will start to deal with tree protection units. And now, regarding to the other variances, variance number 6, the proposed height. If I could have the side elevations up, please. One more down. If you could zoom into the right-hand side of it. This variant number 6 and 7 regarding to the wall height is toward the portion at the front 4-foot portion at the top of the parapet wall, which is located at the front. So that's what that 2 variances are. And regarding to the number of story, if I could roll back to the basement floor plan. The 3-story is because we're using the area under the staircase or the so-called landing area as a mechanical room, and that counts as 1 story, and the landing above counts as the 2nd story. So that is how this 3-story comes in, but there's nothing shown at the front of it, and we also regarding to the height too. And also number 9 is related to the is actually caused by associated with number 4, and so as 10, 11, and 12 they are associated with the other variances we requested at the front. And yeah, that's about it. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you so much. Members, do you have any questions for the agent? Member Kidd, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just looking at the forestry report. It says it's they're interested in keeping the ginkgo, the 63 centimeter ginkgo, but not the honey locust, the 49 centimeter honey locust. They're less concerned about just because it's in poor condition. Which one's the honey locust and which tree is the ginkgo on the site plan?
The ginkgo is the one at the neighbor's house.
On the neighbor's property?
Yeah, on the neighbor's property, and
okay.
The other one is right in front of the staircase, the front front stairs.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, if no other questions, can I, the 12 variances, again, you've noted the forestry report, and we've got staff report with just those specific conditions. You've heard the explanations. Can I get a motion whenever you're ready? Member Kidd, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. Can I ask another question?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm concerned about the effect of the proposal is going to have on not just a protected tree, but a protected tree that belongs to the adjoining neighbor. Can you tell me if, I'd just like the agent to tell me if the existing building is roughly in the same location as the proposed building?
No, the existing is a bit back. See the hidden line on my site plan? That shows the existing, yeah. There is a bit back.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, I see the line there, the existing building.
Okay.
Thank you. That was my concern.
So the site plan is just up for you, Member Kidd, just to see in case you need anything.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Okay.
Um,
That being said, we got quorum with the three of us. I'm sure the other two members had some technical difficulties at the last minute and will join us right after. And Member Bartolo is back. Member Manning is back. Okay.
Sorry
Can
about
I get
that,
a
Chair.
motion?
I'm not, it's a little spotty, but
That's okay. On screen, it looks like you had disappeared, but that's okay. We still had quorum. Motion, please, from the panel. Member Kidd, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, my concern is with regard to the neighbor's ginkgo tree. It's a significant tree, and you know, doesn't belong to the applicant. So I'm going to put forward an amended motion to accept the application, but to deny variants 2 and 4.
Okay, so a motion from Member Kidd to, go ahead.
Yes, sorry, I just noticed the other condition from the planning staff, that the proposal be developed substantially in accordance with the east and west side elevation drawings and the site plan drawings submitted to the Committee of Adjustment as attachment 1, 2, and 3, respectively. Also, forestry condition number 2.
Okay. So,
small friendly amendment, if you don't mind.
yes, go ahead.
I had no issues with the proposal in principle. I just don't think you can tie it to a site plan if you're going to deny the variances.
Yeah,
You can alter the site plan in doing so. That's all.
Right. Yeah. No. I think you're right. We do cause a conflict there. So. Okay. I'd like to remove the planning staff condition. Keep the forestry condition number 2.
Okay, so maybe if you could just repeat your motion one more time so that it's clear for the staff recording it.
Sure. Okay, I'd like to put forward a motion to accept the application, amended to delete variance number 2 and number 4, and as per the urban forestry report, and also to make it subject to forestry condition number 2.
Okay, thank you for your motion. We've got a motion from Member Kidd to approve this application with the removal of variances number 2 and 4 and tying it to subject forestry conditions number 2 only. Someone to second this motion? Seconded by Member Manning. All those in favor? This motion has been unanimously carried. Mr. Z, your application has been approved with those conditions. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, the committee members in charge.
Okay, and then the final item of the evening is 146 Willowdale Avenue. Members, there's no one to speak to this application. And this is an application it's a proposal to permit a vehicle dealership on the subject property. There is only forestry, and Transportation Services recommends approval. They're okay with that. And we'll call out the agent, Michael Cedillo.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. Yep, Michael Cedillo here, and my address is 10 Morrison Street, Toronto.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Members, do you feel you require a presentation on this application? Please let me know. Okay, there being none, Mr. Cedillo, do you have anything you'd like to say about your application before they take this into committee?
I think that in general, this is a pretty straightforward application. It's an existing car rental establishment. They would just like to add permission for vehicle sales now. They have support from the neighbors, no objections from staff, and yeah, I think it's a pretty straightforward application.
Okay, great. Members, do you have any questions of the agent? If not, there's just forestry conditions and no conditions from transport. They recommend approval. Can I entertain a motion? Member Manning?
For you, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve this application. Transportation supports it. I think it's pretty straightforward.
Okay, thank you for that. Motion from Member Manning to approve this application subject to forestry. What did you say? Forestry, right? Okay. Sorry.
I meant to.
Oh, sorry. I'm putting words in your mouth now. So you're okay with forestry. I had heard you say transport. Yes. So, all right. So, and is that seconded by Member Hunt? Member Hunt seconds it. All those in favor? Right. This has been unanimously approved with the conditions of forestry. Thank you so much. That brings us to the end of our hearing. Thank you so much, everyone. You worked really hard. Appreciate it on the planning side and the panel side. Can I get a motion to terminate this hearing? Motion by Member Manning and carried by myself. Thank you and have a good evening, everyone.
You too.
Good night, everybody. See you later.
Bye-bye. Great work. See you all at the training next week.
See you all next week.
Yeah.